Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this virtual live session brought to you by People Matters in association with Pearson. I am Anushri Sharma, Senior Manager, Research and Content Strategist with People Matters, and it is my privilege to welcome you all to this exciting session and be your host for the day. I would like to thank each one of you for taking out time to join us for this exclusive discussion that we have curated especially for you. Today's discussion will focus on the theme elevating the way we identify, measure, and develop talent. Organizational success is largely driven by the acquisition of the best talent available. However, the statistics reveal that 25% of mission critical positions often remain vacant after 5 months. And as organizations compete for the top candidates, they spend large sum of money, time, and other resources in advertising and recruitment. Research shows that careful use of talent assessments can result in increased productivity, cost savings, development, and better retention of top employees. It is my privilege to welcome you all to this exclusive discussion with the objective to find some answers on how we can get the right talent on board and pave the way for the better development strategy using talent assessments. So, quick housekeeping before we start today's session. If you have any question during the session, please feel free to use the chat window. We'll bring them up towards the end of the session as we have reserved 15 minutes for the Q&A with our speakers. And as I have mentioned speakers, and I am very excited to invite our speakers for the session today. And joining us with us today is Stephen Yudianto, who is the Senior Vice President, PT Bank Mandiri. Welcome, Stephen. It's great to have you on board with us.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Stephen, thanks for joining us today. And we also have the pleasure of joining with us Matt Stevens, who is the head of Talent Lens Pearson. Welcome, Matt. Great to have you joining us today.
Hi guys, nice to see you.
Thanks, Matt and Stephen, for joining us today and taking out time for this exclusive discussion that we have curated for the audience on a very critical topic. So now, without any further ado, let me begin with our Q&A session. And this question I am presenting to you both, Stephen and Matt. You all know that in the middle of a we are in the middle of a great resignation, and according to a recent study by Microsoft, we found that 40% of the global workforce is considering leaving their jobs this year. So while the organizations are gearing up and adopting measures to retain talent, how organization can also ramp up their efforts to measure and identify the talent which is available in the market right now? Stephen, would you like to go first here?
Okay, so thank you for the question. So for us, I think, all the changes which happened tremendously in the couple of years, and then nowadays, especially in the pandemic era, I think one of the critical uh, things that we actually have been discussed is about the agility of the people. The challenge is how you find or you how you measure the agility, right? So because I'm pretty much sure that agility is the new talent currency, is the new predictors of potential of talents. And based on that one, I draw there are four uh, 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 sub uh, uh, topics around agility. Yeah, first is around intellectual agility, because now talents demand not only they can do execute things, but they also urge to do transformations, right? So they need to do both. So how you find both in one talent, right? Because maybe before you just follow that, prefer executions or transformations. So now you need to do both. So that is one thing. Yeah. The second one is about emotional intelligence. This is interesting topic, especially in the current situations. Uh, we will not really go to the rigid organizations, where organizations become more agile, and then you need to be able to adapt, collaborate with any kind or type of people. So emotional intelligence is very, very critical. The third one, for me, is about growth mindset. And I think it's really important. We can really find people that we hire growth mindset. Last but not least is about grit. Right? So there are four things that I think is really important in especially in this kind of environment, and this changes the landscape of we find talents. Because before, when you find talent or you want to find successor, people tend to think about whether this candidate can do the job or not. But now it's shifting from can do, whether this candidate will learn in the new job or not. So I think that is also the challenge of organization, whether they really take risks on shifting their paradigm mindsets about talent predictors. So that is my thought.
Thanks, Steven, for sharing that. Matt, I'll come back to you and would like to understand that today we have, while the organization experiencing a lot of talent crunch and resignation, but there is also a huge market, candidate-driven market. So how organizations can leverage the right tools and techniques to really attract and measure the right candidates for the organization?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that is the $1 billion question, right? But before I even attempt to answer that, I just want to kind of say that, I mean, I completely agree with what Stephen said. You basically kind of answered exactly what I would say. I think learning and agility and the desire to learn is absolutely essential now and certainly in the future. Um, Let me begin, Bo, by sort of not offering an excuse for organizations, but we all know, I mean, Stephen hit on it just then. I mean, we're in the middle or hopefully beginning to come out of a pandemic. But even prior to that, I mean, organizations are busy, really busy. They're under a myriad of different pressures. Um, we're operating in an ultra competitive world. There are some volatile and disruptive markets, and the pace of technological change is only going to accelerate. And COVID has simply added a really dreadful further layer to this trend that's just going to continue this acceleration. Before we talk about recruitment, however, and I'm sure Stephen will echo this as well, an organization's goal should always be to retain, upskill, and develop its own people, who are obviously their most precious resource. Now, the reason this is important is that good onboarding, coupled with investing in employee development and learning potential, should help to create a loyal, high performing workforce that can be progressed from within, thus largely avoiding the potential for bad hires that recruitment brings. Now, a caveat to all of that is that if there's no suitable talent within, or the roles we requires specialist knowledge, we obviously need to recruit. So, in answer to your question, in terms of recruitment, organizations need to place the candidate at the center of what they do. What skills are they looking for? What behaviors or technical abilities are they looking for? So, therefore, organizations also need to foster links and develop links within schools, colleges, universities, plus direct outreach via social and other mediums. They need to embed their attraction campaigns within top talents' consciousness, and they need to do it early in these people's lives. They need to meet people on their own terms and show them that their organization is a progressive, welcoming, ethical, and really ambitious place where people can learn. Showing that they provide learning opportunities for potential or existing employees is key, just to echo Stephen's point. Now, once an organization has then generated a talent pool of suitable people, the use of psychometrics comes into play. And this is in order to obtain an objective and unbiased depiction of candidate abilities, be it soft skills, technical abilities, learning agility, or digital proficiency.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for sharing these insights with us. You rightly said about why we need to really understand the right kind of behaviors or skills that we require to operate right now. And Stephen also mentioned some of the behaviors that his organization is looking while hiring a candidate. So I would want to understand from both Stephen and Matt, you that given the fact that a lot of the work has undergone a tremendous change, and obviously there are some expectations from the employees. While you have mentioned some of the behaviors like agility, collaboration, shift in the mindset, what are some of the key skills that you are looking in hiring a candidate, irrespective of the role that they have to perform in the organization?
Well, from my side, it's just to echo Stephen's point. It's all about learning agility, and we know. Say if you get a bunch of 1,000 candidates, for example, for a role, and they've all been to university, they've all got a degree, they've all maybe some of them have got a postgraduate degree, but okay, so we know that they can learn information, we know that they can take it on, but can they apply it? And importantly, are they then willing to want to learn new skills
Yeah.
continuously,
Yeah.
and are they able to collaborate and work with others? And the emotional intelligence is so important. I mean, we're all separated, we're all on screens, right? And so the ability to show empathy, and understand someone else's situation whilst being able to work autonomously, independently, but also like we're doing now across different countries quite smoothly, is absolutely vital. So we need to show compassion, we need to show a real desire to understand other people, but also it's the potential to learn. How willing are you to learn new things? And if you're not willing, you'll quickly become obsolete.
Completely agree with your point. Learning agility is the key to working in this next future of work. Stephen, would you also want to reflect on some of these key skills,
Okay.
though you have already mentioned in the previous
Yeah.
question, but are there any key skills that you are looking to hire in a
Yeah. I'm going to share it's not pretty much on the skill set, yeah, but actually it's the purpose driven, yeah, because we are a state-owned enterprise, yeah. Honest, in the state-owned enterprise, we are now compete with the maybe long time back, yeah, maybe 10 to 15 years, state-owned enterprise become one of the most attractive company for the graduates. Yeah, because large conglomerates, right? And yeah, there's some proud of it. Yeah, but nowadays, yeah, when even my kids or my daughter do not want to join my company, right? So it's ironic now. Yeah, that's why I think purpose driven is really important. Why? Because you need to align what is your employee value proposition with your talent purpose. Because if not aligned, then it's very difficult. That's why I think the most important for us, especially in the state-owned enterprise, whether the candidate embed the dual mission purpose. Like us in the state-owned enterprise, we have dual mission, right? First, you have a economic missions. Yeah, we are profit organizations. However, the second one, you are agent of development. Do you have this? Yeah. Otherwise, it's really difficult to retain later on, right? In this competitive talent market. Yeah. The second and the third one, I think, is really the similar, like Matt already mentioned, is about the agility, learning agility, and it's about the grit, and especially the grit because I also observe. I don't know how you experience also, Matt. Many, especially in the new millennials organizations, yeah, they really exposed to the a shortcut, the control outdoor mindset. I think I said that. Yeah, if the thing's not working, then just reset or you just change the company, right? So grit now is really important because they never been experienced, you know, experiencing failure. They don't know how to deal with failure. They don't know how to deal with mistakes, right? So I think this is also the qualities that I really looking for now, especially in this current situation and this current market.
Thanks, Stephen. So, in fact, listening to your insights, your and Matt's insight, and as I reflect upon them, I understand the importance and focus on power skills, which we commonly refer them as soft skill, is increasing and are necessary to emerge out stronger from the all the uncertainties and all the changes around us and support the future of work. So, thanks, Stephen and Matt, for sharing that. Um, I also have a question around because the changing ways of working. So with many people who have been working from home for almost a year and are still working remotely, and we are also moving towards a hybrid workplace, which is creating ripples in the recruitment today because there has been a complete overhaul in the way we hire our talent. So how we can better enable our recruitment teams to identify and measure the skill gaps in this virtual ecosystem?
Okay. I think this one is really interesting, and I think even before COVID, this should be started already. Yeah. First, we need to utilize our big data, right? Social media is a big data for the talent market, right? So I think how we need not only for instance like LinkedIn, but how you connect like Instagram, their Facebook as your data point to recruit. That is one. Yeah. Even though I ask my team to kind of have a put a parameter. Yeah. In banking, we know as a credit scoring, but we know now talent scoring. For instance, what kind of activities that you post in your Instagram, and then you will have credits, right? And we can do it actually through the big data things, right? So that is one. The second one is about, yeah, it's already happened now. Yeah, we have AI interview, right? Then how we can utilize that? And I think more and more, I pretty much surprised the capability of this AI on doing some interview, right? And last but not least is also the gamifications, right? Because I learned from one of company that even they're using like game like Candy Crush, yeah, as their recruitment tools. So those things I think we need to optimize, yeah, during this hybrid environment.
Thanks for sharing that, Stephen. Matt, I'll come to you. What's your views around how do we better manage or enable our recruitment teams to measure those skills that we are now, assessing those skills in a virtual environment?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Stephen says. I mean, gamification and meeting people on their own terms is absolutely vital. But just returning to the point around working from home, I mean, initially this new world seemed pretty daunting for all of us, and I'm sure for some people really scary. Now, this is obviously understandable. However, it also presents a great opportunity to embrace technology and gain pure objectivity about how we assess people, both candidates and importantly, existing employees. So, how we assess and then progress these people rather than relying on subjective opinion, which with subjectivity is not what we want in recruitment or people's development because subjectivity can be distorted by other things. In recruitment, subjectivity can be an application form, an interview, All of these other things where you haven't got pure data and an unbiased opinion of someone's cognitive ability. Now, with regards to development, subjectivity can come into play with your relationship with someone or someone's perceived reputation within an organization. So psychometric solutions that measure the soft, technical, and digital skills that are out there are the best route to success. Now, we've obviously touched upon soft skills. So the soft skills are things like resilience, learning agility, critical thinking, problem solving, business acumen, all of these kind of areas that are cognitively driven elements that can't really be seen on the surface, but there's something that can be measured with psychometrics. The other things that psychometrics that can measure is technical skills. Now, technical skills are the things that people need to be able to do the job. So there could be mechanical skills, they could be engineering, they could be IT skills. And the third area is digital literacy. So we need our people to be digitally aware and digitally astute. And it's not good enough just to be able to work a computer. It's to be able to disseminate pieces of information and know what's good, know what's fake, all of this stuff. So they're the three areas that psychometric solutions can measure and give this objectivity and remove subjectivity. However, going back to Stephen's point, user experience is absolutely key. By introducing accessible and importantly gamified courses and learning opportunities for employees within which, say, soft or technical skills can be measured, organizations can obtain a clear, unbiased picture of where people are at, and importantly, how they can direct them to develop skills gaps by providing personalized and good-looking learning. Now, the advantage of doing all of this using technology is that, as I said before, you're removing subjectivity. And with the results, this data can be mapped to organizations' employee rating systems, thus enabling benchmarking and progression to occur. Now, the reason this is important is that in such a competitive and digital world where automation is on the rise, employees should be aiming to learn at least one new skill per year, ideally more, in order to keep them relevant and at the forefront of their space. So, in the name of retaining the best employees and nurturing other employees, organizations need to help to enable this for their people. And if they don't, another company will.
Totally agree with you, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. Stephen, I would also want to understand your perspective because Matt has also delved deeper onto why it is also important assessing the skills gap internally and pave a growth path for your internal employees for better retention. Would you also want to share any, examples from your organization on what all things that you are doing in terms of developing those skills internally, assessing those skills gap, mapping the right kind of skills that employees needs, and how do you go about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Anasri. I think this is a pretty much a challenge. Yeah, not only for my company, but we other company as well. Yeah. We know one is really a competency modeling. Yeah. And I think this is like an old school. Yeah, for us. And because if we, it's so complicated. Yeah, to define competency for especially the technical one for each job. Yeah, you can really imagine in my company we have about 3,000 jobs. Yeah, and then we need to map. Yeah, to define competency, and then the question is whether the competency is still relevant or not. Yeah, so that's pretty much a challenge for us. Yeah, so now what we did is we introduce what we call a technical capability modeling. Yeah, so in its jobs, yeah, we need to define its capability, which is it's pretty much more lighter than competency or technical competencies. Yeah, and every year, yeah, first we need to review whether our capability model in this job family is still relevant with our strategy or not. That is one step. The second one, we ask every employee, yeah, and validated by employee manager, yeah, to what we call uh, validated by employee manager to measure, yeah, the the progress of their capability related to their jobs. So with these two, yeah, I think we can really measure the technical capability gap, yeah, with all the employee across the company. So that is one thing. And I said that I know this is not really practical enough, yeah. However, I do this because I'm sure that we need to align. Otherwise, your generic measurements only coming from center like human capital cannot really match the needs of the business. So that is really the rigor that we have every year, yeah, to do this.
Sure. Thanks, Stephen, for sharing that. Matt, I'll come back to you. You beautifully explain the role of technology and assessments in hiring and retaining talent. I would also want to understand if you can elaborate more on assessment tools which are enabling companies to benchmark their current skills in order to identify the right employees and right programs. And you have been working with top industries. If you could also reflect on some of the challenges they are also facing.
Yeah, of course. Now, I've just mentioned around sort of soft skills, and Stephen's also spoken about technical abilities. But I mean, this is an area that has refined or been refined drastically over the last few years. As the workplace has shifted to a more sort of technologically driven space, organizations are able to really get to know their employees and candidates, and they can measure so many different areas. And we've already mentioned around the soft skills piece, so cognitively driven abilities, and we mentioned around resilience, creativity, critical thinking. We've also spoken around the technical skills, so the abilities and the knowledge needed to perform specific tasks. And and then I've just mentioned in my last answer around digital skills, so digital literacy, proficiency, that their tech savviness and awareness. So these three areas, from our perspective, are probably the three that organizations really need to be looking at. Now, the reason this is vital is that in many industries and countries, the most in-demand occupations or specialties didn't exist 10 or even 5 years ago. And the pace of change is set to accelerate. The skill sets required both now and in these new occupations will change within most industries and transform how and where people work. So the most successful employees are going to be those people who are best equipped to move not only from job to job, but even from industry sector to sector, taking with them a transferable skill set and a positive learning mentality. And just to echo Stephen's point from right at the beginning of this, we're finding that measuring learning agility is really going to become one of the most important things that corporations and organizations have to deal with over the next few years. I mean, the reason this is the case is that organizations want to know someone's ability to acquire new information whilst being able to disseminate the vast amounts of data or information we're bombarded with every day. I read a study recently saying that we're bombarded with 2 million bits of information each day, which is, I found out, roughly equivalent to 2 books worth of data that hit our consciousness every day. So the reason we need people who are good at disseminating this information is that we need people to make good, informed decisions that will help our organizations meet their goals.
if I may add what is Matt's point, Anas,
Yeah, sure.
so I think I really agree, especially in our cases in the banking industry. Yeah, if you may know the future of bank, and then later on when we identify the branchless banking in the futures, because nowadays, yeah, all of us maybe it's really not quite often go to the bank, right? Otherwise, you just lost your ATM card, even though the ATM card can be really stand. Yeah, but if you're in the traditional environment, that is what you do. You just go to the bank when you have trouble, yeah, with your ATM and so on and so on, or you want to additional features. So what we did is we nowadays you already have a card printed machines that you do not really need the customer service. You now already have a machine of ATM that can serve you a large amount of money of transactions. So the brands is will become irrelevant. And the question is how you upskill and reskill these people, right? And I think what Matt comment about the digital readiness, yeah, the digital literacy is really very relevant. And then if I can add more, there are two other things than the digital now that I'm working on. Yeah. First is about data driven or data analytics, because now they need to learn how they can really shorting the data that they receive every day and bombard it with tons of data, right, every day. That is one. The second one is about the design thinking mindset. Before they just operator, now they need to design the user experience, for instance, for a brands, right? So they need to shift their thinking from operator to design process. So there are three area that I think, yeah, to upskill, yeah, the existing uh, labor force, especially in our conventional financial services. That is my experience.
Thanks. Thanks, Steven, for sharing that. And I would also want to understand from you, Steven. Matt reflected on the role that talent assessments can play in hiring and retaining the top talent. In your experience while working with these talent assessment tools, how do you think we can, leverage them better in a way that it increase cost savings, development, and better retention of top employees?
Okay. Yeah. First, uh, actually, is about the report. Yeah, because I think there are many assessment not have a good layman term in their report. They use many, quite a sophisticated terminology, especially psychological terminology, which not really, get commonly used in term of in the general user. That is one. The second one is the candidate experience, right? I think it's really important to really have a good candidate experience when they're taking the assessment. Yeah, because sometimes, yeah, especially in the hybrid environment, yeah, you do not need really a proctors to do assessment, right? The third one is about the norm, and I think it's really important when I say the norm, because sometimes when you do the assessment, you need to pretty much have a bit cultural sensitivity, because I experienced there are many assessment developed in the Western world, but sometimes it's really not culturally sensitive to the Asians. Yeah, for instance, like the degree of assertiveness. Yeah, I think in a Western world, assertiveness is really normal. Yeah, but Asian country, especially like Indonesia, yeah, it's not that the norm. Maybe it's quite different. Yeah, so I think that is some things that we need to do it. Yeah, and then I pretty much agree that technology is the way we go. Yeah, um, I'm not sure that we will really want to use the old psychometry that we are getting used to, but I think with the inventions of robot, big data, and better user interface, I think we need to leverage this.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Stephen, for sharing that. And Matt, I'll come back to you because these are some of the very interesting points and challenges that Stephen has put forward. And given the fact that you are working in an organization, helping the your organizations in assessing the better way to hire a candidate, what is your take? I mean, there are some of the challenges that Stephen mentioned about cultural sensitivity, data reporting, and user experience. The candidates who are taking these assessments, how do we solve these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, again, and I think that one of the first things I said in this conversation was that's the billion-dollar question, and that is definitely the case here. And I completely agree. I think in a lot of cases, um, we've got companies that were producing these assessments in the so-called Western world, and they're then suitable for the what we call, even in the Western world, we call it the old world, because it's traditional markets. And where is the world going to grow? It's not going to grow in the West. And so, in order to be relevant and competitive, companies that are working with partners and colleagues in the Asian world, we need to really put ourselves in the shoes of the people we're working with and make sure that the tools and solutions that are being produced are suitable and relevant. I mean, Stephen, I've just noted down what you said about assertiveness, and it's such a good point, because when we're talking to people, it's so easy to make a cultural mistake without even realizing it. And that's purely down to ignorance. But once you've met someone, you've spent time with them, you very quickly understand how they like to be treated. And the same thing goes for psychological assessments as well, because something that could appear absolutely fine to you guys might make me go, oh, that's not right for me, and vice versa, obviously. And this is the challenge we've got, and I think it's of paramount importance, coupled with solid, up to date user experience. Because if we're going to be relevant, and if companies such as Pearson are going to be able to partner with organizations such as Stevens or other organizations in this area, we need to do it on an equal footing and make sure we deliver people what they want and what their market wants, rather than saying, this is what we're selling. Do you want it? It's got to be developed together.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thanks, Matt. It's all about empathizing with the community
Yeah.
needs. Thanks, Matt, for sharing that. Stephen, those were really wonderful points and really something that needs to be reflected by the organizations. We also have one important question that has come from the audience, and I would like to take this because somehow we have missed this in our conversation. It's about the frontline manager. So, I mean, a frontline manager, these are the direct contacts of all the employees, and they also needs to be they need to take ownership of their skilling, more seriously. So the question is, how can we get more frontline managers to encourage their teams to take skilling more seriously? How can we get the reporting managers to own this agenda?
So from my perspective, this is something that has to originate from the organization. It has to be something that is modeled from the top of the organization. Once that occurs, and it's built in to everyone's consciousness within the organization, it becomes something that's natural. And obviously, frontline managers are a key messenger, a key deliverer of the organizational strategy and the messaging. So people need to take ownership, just like employees need to take ownership. Bosses need to take ownership and really model that behavior. And if it's being modeled, then that's when people will see the benefits, and they need to be presented with evidence that it works. And once they're presented with that evidence, people are pretty sensible animals, and so we're going to use logic, and that we'll see that it's a worthwhile thing to do. And we all know on this conversation, we know it has to be done. So what needs to happen is that if managers are modeling this behavior, the employees will then copy, they will buy into it, they will see the results. Because most importantly, it's about developing you as a person, and who doesn't want to learn something new every year? And I think if we're looking at the situation we're in within companies, if you're working for a corporation or an organization, you're getting free training and getting paid for it. Who doesn't want that? So it's basically about selling that to people in the right way.
Thanks, Matt. Stephen, your views around this?
Yeah. So maybe I just share my experience, and I think um, from companies to companies that I really see this is really, how should I call, basic things. However, if you do not do this, then your human capital program will irrelevant. Yeah, because people manager is the basic things in human capital, because you cannot exercise your human capital strategy without the help of the frontline managers, because the closest HR managers to the employee is their managers, right? So it's not the human capital. So that is really critical. So I just share what is the recent initiative that I did in Bank Mandiri. We first we have what we call people KPI or people score. Yeah, does not mean the objective is to fulfill the KPI, but I just want to share with them the importance of you manage your people. So what I did as a people score, so they have all of the line manager have 10% weight on the people score. And then what people score is consists of, first, whether they already do coaching. Yeah, minimum twice a year. Basic things, right? But the one that fulfill the score or the report is not them. It's the employee with their coach. That is one. The second one, whether their team already have individual development plan or not. Okay, that is the second uh, thing. The third one, whether the IDP being realized or not. How much the percentage. So it's a simple thing. However, if you put that in each of the frontline manager score, it changed something. It changed the culture. It changed the awareness for them that the accountability to take care of the manager is the boss and the employee itself. Yeah. So that's shifting the mindset. So we call it that as a co-creating future Mandirian leader.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Stephen, for sharing that. And I can see a lot of questions right now from our audience, and I would like to take the first question by Rachel. And it is something that we have been discussing for long. That discussion about whether hard skills are important, whether soft skills are important, and you, Matt and Stephen, you both reflected upon how soft skills have been emerging as an important criteria for organization right now to emerge out from all the uncertainties. But what are your views around? Is it equally important developing the hard and soft skills? in context of organizational growth?
Yes. In a short answer, yes. I mean, it's the hard skills or the technical skills that's the grounding about whether someone can do a role. Okay. However, the soft skills are the things that we can really influence. And I mean, we both mentioned around learning agility, and so the desire and willingness to learn. So if someone maybe hasn't got qualifications and they haven't been to a good university, so to speak, a good university, whatever that is, and they come to us and they've got no degree, and they're up against someone who's got a brilliant degree from an amazing university. But from my perspective, and hopefully most organizations' perspective, if they both then do say a test of critical thinking or problem solving, and they come out the same, they should be regarded as equal, regardless of whether one has a degree or not. Because we all know people who are really qualified who make bad decisions, and we all know lots of people who have got no qualifications whatsoever who've become extremely successful. So this is what we're talking about: the growth mindset, learning agility, because this is what we're interested in. Is yes, you've been to a great university, well done, but are you willing to apply this knowledge throughout your career? And this is a really important point, because we go to university and our formal education finishes by the time we're 20, 21, 22. And then what? We then have 40, 50 years of career where we have to do continuous informal learning. And if we don't, someone else will come and take our job quite happily.
Sure, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. Learning agility is something that really is core to not only organization but the individual, him or herself. Yeah. Stephen, your take on this? What's so according to your organization, given taking example of your organization, what is your priority right now? Hard skills or soft skills?
Yeah, I think both is equally important, like Matt mentions. Yeah, and for us, especially in the financial service sector. Yeah, and if I can really zoom, especially in the corporate banking. Yeah, as a credit analyst, I think first you need to have a technical qualifications on analyzing the financial report. That is really basic things, right? And then these skills is really growth over time. You cannot really push that. Okay, once you did a bachelor degree in finance, then it's done. No, because in the practice, that is totally different, right? That's a minimum qualifications. But if you really want to get your career higher, the soft skill is really more, you know, important. Yeah. However, the minimum qualification is there. Yeah, the technical expertise, and I think it's really important. Even though in the financial analysis, you need to specialize. Or I'm expert in financial analysis of mining industry, of fast moving consumer industry, of technology industry, because these three industry can give you a different notions, right? However, if you want to become, for instance, like higher level, like uh, vice president, directors level, I think for sure that soft skills plays a critical role.
True, Stephen. True. True. The next question is so I'm going to merge these two questions. uh, we all know that by investing in a training program or this strategy, there is some budget that we need to invest. So the first part of this question is how we can create a culture of learning without the big budgets of investment, because honestly not all the organization get the desired budgets that they can that they want to invest in these programs. And second is how do you prove the ROI of these programs that you are investing in?
Okay, so I think if you are in the learning functions, most of us is really agree. Yeah, 50% of our training investment goes to accommodations, transportation, foods, logistic, and printed materials. And now I think it's really the best time, yeah, to show that we are really optimize your learning budget. Yeah. Nowadays, you can create learning with no budget. Nowadays, right? So I think definitely first you need to build the capability of your learning organizations. Yeah, because many subject matter expert, yeah, not guaranteed you successful on delivering training, because you need to have a learning expert that can really convert what is in the mind of the subject matter expert into learning experience. Yeah, and I think that is the first investment that you need to have. Because for digital one, I think you can use any even free uh, platform, yeah, to do a digital learning like this, right? Yeah, but first I think you need to invest, yeah, as a learning developer or program developer that can turn, yeah, the knowledge, the tacit knowledge inside of the subject matter expert becoming a learning experience. That is one. The second one, you need to create the culture of learning, like the one that mentioned. How you create the culture of learning? Yeah, like I mentioned, first of all, I put the people score, and in the people score, leader as teachers becoming one of the score. Yeah, because as a leader, yeah, as a leader, you need either one. First, if you have a public speaking or presentations, a good presentation skills, then you can become a really a facilitators. However, if you are not really good as a presentation skills or facilitating, then you can create learning materials, right? And we create this too. We create this too, yeah, to create the culture of learning, because especially more and more I seen then, yeah, I know in this, cost effective organization tend to how should I call, just becoming event organizer, learning department just becoming an event organizer, not build the capability, yeah, to provide the learning ecosystem for the organizations. So that is my thoughts on how you can create the culture of learning.
That's actually great insights, Steven. Especially, it's investing in learning programs is something that comes after, but the real issue is investing in your learning team and learning
Yeah,
organization and
yeah,
create that mindset that
yeah.
the end in mind is to create the learning culture that which matters the most. And Matt, I would ask a similar question to you, but I'm also coming from the fact that while the organization expect learning teams to prove the ROI of these programs and the investment, and you also mentioned about the need of the right tools like talent assessments to streamline this journey of development. So if you could suggest from your experience or advice that you can give to the HR leaders or learning professional how to create that business case in investing in these tools.
Yeah. So essentially, um, it's about generating an objective depiction of where people are. So let's sort of think about the cost of a bad hire, for example. So I mean, if you recruit people, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of money to recruit people effectively. I was talking earlier on about embedding attraction campaigns within people's consciousness at a young age. So it's a long process. So having done all of this work to get people into your organization, why wouldn't you want to then onboard them and motivate them and stimulate them and empower them to want to stay? And the way to do that is by offering them learning opportunities. And we've already all agreed that if we don't do that in this hyper competitive world, then people will look elsewhere. It's completely normal that they'd want to do that. Now, if people are leaving, as per the Microsoft report from earlier in the conversation, you then have to go back in the market, back in the transfer market, so to speak, to find new employees. Now, this is a risk because recruitment is basically a game of sort of risk management and probability, really. And so, and by doing that, you're then opening yourself up to bad hires, which can cost $30,000 for a lower level employee, right up to hundreds of thousands of dollars for people who are at a senior exec level. So going back to my answer at the start of the question, why wouldn't you want to invest in your existing people? That's the ROI, because it's the risk of not doing it. If you do it, and as Stephen said, technology has provided a great opportunity, a great level playing field. It's removed the barriers to entry to the space, because in this world we're now in, people are able to get very, very low interest on business loans. This is virtually free money to innovate and develop new products. So these new learning platforms, new things are going to be available consistently, and it's just going to carry on. So therefore, organizations don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money to switch their employees on to the concept of learning. And I think it's using simple logic with them, is that, basically, do you want to progress as a person? Does the organization want to progress as an entity? If that's the case, then it's vital that people, and you're recruiting people and your existing employees, want to have that growth mindset and want to learn.
Sure, sure. I think that's the best insight about the ROI is actually the cost of the good hire and the bad hire, and that's you have to decide. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. And before we conclude the session, there's one last question from Yena, who is asking, how do you measure the outcomes of the skilling program or talent development programs that you mentioned? So, what are some of the metrics that we should, regulate or take into account while measuring the outcomes of these programs?
So, just quickly, with regards to measuring outcomes, this is where psychometrics can come into play, because this is psychometrics, if they're founded on science and scientific principles, and they've got solid validity, reliability, the norms are relevant to the area or region that they're measuring, then they deliver pure objectivity. And so what you can then do, you then have a starting point. You know where your employees are at. You know what their cognitive ability skills in those areas, what their soft skills are in those areas. Then once you have that information, what we're beginning to notice is that there's a demand from organizations to then, they're asking that so what question I mentioned earlier on. Once you have that data and you know what their abilities are, you want to then offer your employees personalized digital learning opportunities that's based upon that information. So if I've done a series of assessments and it turns out that I need to improve my critical thinking skills or my resilience, you can then be put on personalized digital courses, which are there for me as an employee to help me develop and grow. Once I've sat that course and I've passed the various elements within it, you can then be awarded digital badges, accreditations, which are then logged and then can be logged against your company's rating systems, which will then enable progression to occur. But again, it's based upon objectivity to inform a learning pathway.
Thanks, Matt. Stephen, your point of view here. What are some of the metrics that we can measure in able to assess the outcomes of all the investment that we are making in our learning programs?
Okay, so I think first of all, I think I align with Matt uh, sharing. Yeah, so we have a, s- a, a psychometric program actually that we can measure it both individual and organizational level. Yeah, for instance, like uh, in the in the senior manager level, we actually provide them. We actually ask them to join the assessment center, and then in the assessment center, we are quite disciplined to do it once in every 2 years. And with this, I actually measure, yeah, for instance, like one of the area to be developed for the senior manager level is the strategic orientations, and how you measure the strategic, how you intervene with the class program, uh, coaching, mentoring on the focusing on the strategic orientations, and then after 2 years, I do it to measure it again, and then we can really find what is really um, the ROI actually, yeah, for this.
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Matt, for sharing all the insights in this session. The topic was truly the need of hour and something that the entire community has been dealing with. And I'm sure there was a great, a lot of learning for our audience and a lot of key takeaways for them to actually apply all these thoughts in their organization. And with this, we are going to wrap up today's session. Thank you, Stephen and Matt, again for giving us your time. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our partner Pearson, who helped us in creating and stitching the entire content for this session. Thanks a lot. Uh, and also for our audience, before I close this session, I am delighted to inform that People Matters and Pearson is conducting a 2021 survey on the power skills. I'm excited to invite you all to participate and help us identify the hiring and upskilling priorities for employers in Asia Pacific. Uh, and with this, we close today's session. It was a great pleasure hosting you all. Thanks, Stephen and Matt, for taking our time and sharing all the insights with us. And to our audience, do stay tuned with your inbox because we are going to share a quick link about the feedback on this virtual learning session that we had. We'll be waiting for your response on the feedback of this entire session. Um, have a great day and stay safe. We'll come back to you with another exciting session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.